Hello, welcome to SquishiVision. I have just watched the book of Boba Fett, Chapter 1. I think it's A Stranger in a Strange Place, something along the lines of that. So these are my immediate thoughts and reactions, having just watched it. I've not had a chance to kind of scrub through, each frame to nitpick any details, and that's not what it's about. It's just my immediate gut reaction, having just watched it. Immediately off the bat, I love the immediate flashbacks to his past. I wasn't expecting to see Camino or Geonosis. I'm not sure how much of that was new. Well, okay, so obviously the bit with Daniel Logan playing a young Boba Fett was existing footage, but to my memory, I don't recall the. I might be wrong, but to my memory, I don't recall the bit where you can see Boba's reflection in the helmet. And I'm pretty sure another shot after that is a much wider shot that we don't see in the film, because I'm pretty sure we only see it through the kind of frame within a frame shot of the archway. So either this is unused footage, or it's a CJ replication, both of which I'm a big fan of. But in addition, yeah, the shots of Camino probably established shots from the previous several shots from Attack of the Clones. But yeah, I love that we start off with that, and I hope we get some more. I mean, obviously it's gonna be difficult to do some flashbacks with Boba, especially as I'm drinking from a C3PO cup. That wasn't planned, but we're gonna go with it anyway. It's probably unlikely we're gonna get any flashbacks to Boba at that time because Daniel Logan's an adult now, and so he can't play that role outside of any animated episode. Hopefully we get maybe some flashbacks so between Revenge of the Sith, and I guess it would have to be A New Hope if we're where we get to see Daniel Logan. It's unclear where the aging kind of is because he looks much older here than you think he really should be, considering it's really 20 years since. But you can explain some of that by the damage from the back tank. So it's anyway, that's the point. Let's just everything in too far ahead. Let's stick with this episode. It was also great to see kind of shots of Jabba's palace, like empty. Gives you a feel that they're really, whilst they do have the old empire still existent, they're in a sense starting over very much from scratch to re-establish their authority. So here's woke up by Fennec, Shah, played by the absolute amazing Min-Na Wen, and to go and accept tribute from several old, I guess, customers, clients, benefactors of Jabba. Like we see one person who Boba can't understand. We get a former employer who has clearly some degree of ego bruised by the fact that he's now having to pay tribute to why is my computer going very, very slow? Something to dig into in a second, I guess. Maybe it's just because I have to update the software. Where was I? So yeah, obviously ego bruising there. And then we get the mayor's what's the term? Made a joke. I forget the term now. But he's like his assistant. I love that kind of interaction. According to Wikipedia, that character is voiced, if not also played by the director Rodriguez. Oh god, I'm butchering all the names here. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's interesting. And I love that kind of very political back and forth fact that he's acting very kind of courteous, but at the same time kind of undermining Boba's authority. I thought it was very, very kind of nice. I always love the kind of those very politically imbued discussions. It's one reason why I love DS9 and Star Trek. It used to do a lot of the same thing. So I hope that's kind of what's happening here. And then finally, Boba decides to spare the two guards who used to work with Jabba and Bib Fortuna, on the proviso that they then now work for him, which they appear to do quite loyally. And it's interesting to see kind of, because rarely we get a lot of characteristics of Boba in here when we have very little to go off. Because a lot of what Boba is in the minds of people is very much stuff they've created for themselves. Obviously, then we had an entire expanded universe full of Boba Fett, but a vast majority of people didn't really engage with that material. You know, fans did, for sure, but the vast majority of people who know who Boba Fett is wouldn't have engaged with those materials. So we're really creating his character from scratch. And you know, Boba in the Clone Wars was very much someone who was out for blood, but never really kind of ever seemed to kind of commit to the level of brutality that he would need to. Clearly something has changed, because now he is quite a brutal character, which is what you want to see. Obviously, there's two different lenses there. There's one lens which is Boba Fett in a children's cartoon show. Not by I don't like this phrase, a children's show. I think it's for reference comic show, but it can get quite dark in the Clone Wars, and quite mature even as well. But we had a Boba who was very much in the lens of a family show, and a Boba who is in what's shows more for a bit more of a mature audience. But even then, we do see a sense of kind of honor and not being brutal for brutal's sake, and that's what Boba Fett's clear that he wants to, you know, do that his predecessors didn't do, that Jabba didn't do. He doesn't want to be feared. He doesn't rule by fear. He wants to rule by respect. And I think that's actually consistent with the, you know, post EU canon of Star Wars, of what we know of Boba Fett. But it's interesting that the episode kind of doesn't really show that as a safe option to go, and in fact, you know, no one in the episode seems to treat Boba with respect. He's kind of, in both flashbacks and what we see in current times, he is consistently kind of treated like dirt. So it's interesting we don't go straight into the fact that into the kind of. I'm interested to see if he goes back on that, because it's very possible. But yeah, because he's got, you know, Fennec Shan in his ear being like, "This is a bad idea. You should rule with fear. You should be a bit more violent, a bit more brutal, a bit more putting your foot down." And he might even come around. It's interesting to see how that goes. Because yeah, for all the kind of badassery nature that Boba Fett is, he, you know, and this we see him in the kind of the very current. We see him in the present time. Like in his first fight, he isn't fair. He's quite robust, but he's not faring very well, and he has to get, you know, basically dragged back to his palace. Which isn't a good image for a crime lord to have. And yet that's kind of his first public outing as a crime lord. So it'll be interesting to see if any fallout to that. Like literally, he gets surrounded by a couple of assassins. This isn't the Boba Fett we saw in Mandalorian, who wiped out an entire Stormtrooper army. This one gets his, you know, butt fairly kicked to him. And to be fair, is between normal Stormtroopers and what we assume are kind of trained assassins. But he, you know, deals with that. And he just managed to survive through. And actually, to effect, has to be saved by his guards. Which, again, for the feared Boba Fett is quite a look. It's really interesting. That's an angle. I found that very interesting. I found it very interesting. In the first episode we see him, he has that level. He has that amount of weakness. I wonder what they're gonna do with that. Like maybe that, you know, gets picked up immediately in the next episode. That we, you know, someone basically says, "Oh, the mighty Boba Fett, look how he's fallen," having to be kind of protected by all these people, and then there's gonna be like a giant power grab that he has to deal with. That's probably even problematic for the show. But it's interesting because it's not acting as if this is his normal kind of, because obviously we don't have much actual experience of what his combat ability is like, other than what we've seen in the Mandalorian, which is obviously pretty competent, but that's against, you know, Stormtrooper armies with an advantage. Whereas clearly here he's recovering from a degree of, you know, pain and injury. But, you know, it's interesting because you compare that to how he was in the flashback. So he seems fairly, you know, fairly like robust. Sorry, I'm just reporting this spam. He seems fairly robust in flashbacks post Han Solo rescue. Like, he escapes the Scarlac, gets dragged across the desert, the hot desert, with no, nutrition or water. And even after, and he gets beaten up a bit, and even after all that, is able to punch out, I think that's what they call a massive, punch out a massive, run for quite a bit, fight the massive, fight someone else. He loses, but he's able to fight. Then the next day, he goes out walking, digs a whole bunch, and then fights this like multi-legged, limbed creature. All with very little nutrition, it would seem. So it's a bit interesting that we compare that Boba Fett with what we see in Boba Fett in the current terms. And I don't know if it's maybe there's something new which is propped up, which is why he's suffering and is finding things difficult, or maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to really say, but I wonder if that's something that's going to be explored later on, if it was just a kind of a quirky episode. Don't know much to read much into. But yeah, go back in that, we see how he survives the Scarlac. I mean, the expanded universe kind of versions of this, I think, were fairly consistent in it's not much different. I think there was I think what's his name now? Oh, forgetting about one of the bunch hunters, the one with the kind of cloth wrapped on his face. Yeah, we get a D. Haaris like 10 years ago would have been able to tell you this instantly, but I forgot what it is now. I think he had a hand in rescuing Boba, which is not the case anymore. But other than that, it's there wasn't very much to it. Basically, he was lucky that he had armor that protected him from the digestion system, and he was lucky that he had a flamethrower, and I think that was enough to really get him out. But obviously, a very weakened Boba Fett. And then, he immediately gets robbed by the Jawas, who are like absolutely not a single care in the world about leaving him to die. And then the Tusken Raiders capture him and apparently are using him for slave labor. Which I guess is a bit of a step back from the more positive portrayal we got of them in The Mandalorian, but I guess nuance, maybe. And then apparently they trust a child Tusken Raider. Apparently they have a lot of confidence for the ability of their young. That they trust a child Tusken Raider with 2 prisoners, like, who are both like twice their height. And one of them was shown to be a very capable fighter, even when severely malnourished and injured. But they apparently that's cool of them. It's a way of life. And then we get this really cool kind of serious creature with like multiple limbs. I don't think it's something we've seen before in Star Wars. I glanced at Wikipedia earlier and it didn't have a name, so I assume it's a new creature. And Boba uses the same method that, in essence, Leia used to kill Jabba and strangles it with a chain. And then goes back with the child to Tusken camp. So he's kind of got a lot of trust that either Tusken Raiders are going to respect him now, or he's got a little bit of choice because he apparently can't. I mean, he seems to think he can run off into the desert, and he's probably right. So I guess he was assuming he'd be owed a favor. So that's kind of what happened in the episode. Well, I think it was alright. I don't think it had the same level of kind of warmth for The Mandalorian did. This was a bit more subdued. I'm not sure what the genre is quite yet, because obviously Mandalorian is very much Western. This, I'm not quite sure what the kind of genre is quite yet. But I guess we'll have to. Excuse me, where is he? I liked some of the lore building more than I liked kind of the current world building, so I'm hoping we get more momentum in the next episode. I don't know how many episodes there are in this series. I want to say probably the same amount as The Mandalorian, so maybe about 6 to 10, I guess, is what we're going to expect. So, if that being the case, I just hope we get a bit more momentum soon. But it's amazing seeing, like, Tim Morrison as Boba Fett. Honestly, it's like, I can't see this guy as the same actor who plays Jango Fett, even though it is the same actor who plays Jango Fett. But, obviously, 19 years apart. Oh, God, why did that peak? 19 years apart, and all the makeup, and it's enough to separate these two different people. So yeah, I think I'm more interested in seeing where this goes next. At the moment it stands, I'm like, well, oh, that shouldn't be peaking. I meant to have a limiter. Let me I'm just gonna shout real quick to test this limiter out. Testing 1. That shouldn't be peaking. Oh well, I'll play with that another time. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not like, what's the word? I'm not put off by this episode. I just guess I was expecting a bit more. I don't know why I wasn't expecting a bit more. So I guess, yeah, I'm more interested in where we go next, and I guess that's going to define how much I'm kind of into this. At the moment I am preferring Mandalorian.
Not too intense though.
Make it personal with the Tassimo My Way 2 from Bosch. Create custom coffees by setting the temperature, size and strength just the way you like it.
Definitely a large Kenko cappuccino.
Is that ad playing? Well, that's really annoying. Turn that off. I guess that's why. I knew there was a reason why I didn't use Spotify for this, and then I completely forgot what that reason was, and used Spotify again. I'll turn that back on when it comes on. Okay, well, last time we do that. Anyway, well, I'm almost done. So, yeah, what do you think of this episode? Did it capture? Oh yeah, I think I was about to say. I think the Mandalorian had a much stronger opening than this did. I know it's hard because I binge watched Mandalorian because I didn't watch it on release because I got Disney Plus a bit afterwards, or maybe the UK got Disney Plus a bit afterwards, I should say. So whereas this I'm having to wait a week and a week and a week, I don't think it's quite grasped my attention yet in that sense. To a point where I'm like, it's not got to a point where I'm like, oh well, this will do me over to the Mandalorian comes back on. It's more a case of, can I have Mandalorian as well, please, maybe? So that's it, basically we'll end off there. Let me know what you think. Was it what you were expecting the show to be, or were you expecting a bit more oomph like I was? Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. But first, I will remember to press the right